Jagradiff, Jam Masters. So it's been taught that the treatise on faith mind by the third Zen patriarch is one of the deep spiritual teachings ever written. And all you need is the first line. It says, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. Now I know your mind is going to react to that. If you have no preferences, how do you know what to do? How do you have no preferences? Isn't that a preference to have no preferences? The mind has a lot of fun with that, because the statement that the great way, meaning enlightenment, total merger, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences, is beyond mind. Mind cannot handle this. But it can come to the edge. Your intellectual mind, your logical mind, can come right to the edge. You have to let go when it's said and done, because the mind is just another object of consciousness, and it keeps you from merging into pure consciousness. But there's another way to look at having no preferences. If you prefer every single thing that happens is exactly the same as having no preferences. Because having no preferences means that you have not set up what you like against what you dislike, which happens to be the next lines in that. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When both love and hate, like and dislike, are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the slightest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. To set aside what you like from what you dislike is a disease of the mind. Avoid such pursuits carefully. So it is not that preferences as a word are a problem. It is our preferences. It's something, let's get this straight, I made up inside of me. Your preferences are your preferences. They may not very well be your husband's or your wives' or your kids or your bosses or yours yesterday. They are the essence of the personal mind. That is literally the essence of the personal mind, is that you have going on inside your head things that you made up that you want going on outside. How's that for a definition of preferences? I'll repeat it. You made up, you did, nobody else did, you're the only one in there. You made up inside your head what you want going on outside or what you don't want going on outside. And what happens when you do that? You suffer. And so does everybody else around you. Because you have learned that if the outside matches the preferences you created inside, you're a happy dude and dudess. You're doing okay. And not only is that a true statement, but the degree to which they match and the degree to which you have a preference. If it's some minor little preference, I want a little more ice cream, it's nice if someone says, oh, by the way, do you want some more? Wow, it's divine intervention. All right? But it doesn't last a long time. But if you make a preference, I want to meet somebody that my heart just goes bam, and I just know that he or she's the one. Boy, that does some serious changes inside, doesn't it? Yes or no? Do you understand? If you met that person yesterday or tomorrow, it might not have happened. It depends on what you ate for dinner last night. Do you have a stomach ache? It depends on what your health is like at this time. It depends on the phone call you just had. Was it opening and positive, or did somebody die that you love? Because it is very likely that if somebody died that you love and you meet Mr. or Miss Right, they don't look right. This is so important to understand. Shakespeare says, know thyself. You have to know yourself. You have to know what's going on in there. So what preferences do is they make it so that the outside needs to be a certain way for you to be okay. How's that? And they make it so the outside better not be a certain way for you not to be freaked out inside. So you now have two choices. You may go outside and attempt to manipulate the moments unfolding in front of you so that they match the preferences you decided inside your own head and heart. All right, we'll discuss how they got there in a minute. Do any of you doubt that they're your preferences? They're your preferences. You made them up. Now, you had some help. Psychology tells you that man is the sum of his learned experiences. It's not true. You are the consciousness that is aware that your mind and your heart are the sum of your learned experiences. You're not the sum of your learned experiences. You're there no matter what they are. You watch them change. You're a conscious being. You're the witness. But your thoughts and your emotions, your personal mind and your personal heart, are the sum of your learned experiences. What does that mean? It means that if you had a nice experience 5 years ago, you want it to happen again. You want what to happen again? The same thing. You really want the same thing to happen. You literally, in relationships, that first kiss is really sacred, isn't it? All right? It's like you melt. Don't look at the person next to you. Do you melt on every kiss 5 years later? No, of course not. Do you sometimes wish you did? Do you sometimes remember the first kiss and ask him and her, why don't you love me like you used to love me? You used to kiss me and I just felt like it melted. Come on, be honest. That's what's happening. You had an experience and you have a preference. I want to happen again. Have you ever had a bad experience with somebody? One. First time you met them. You thought they were rude, or you thought they were crude, or you thought whatever it is. They weren't paying attention. Do you know what happens next time you see that person? You don't want to see him. Hey, you want to go out? Who are you going with? George. Nah, I'd rather not. So that's what it means that your psyche is the sum of your learned experiences. Your personal mind, your personal heart, learn from the experiences they had, how they turned you on or turned you off, and now that's how you act. Listen to me. That's where your preferences come from. You did not make them up. If you decide what college you want to go to, you did not decide. You had impressions left upon you. It's a play school, it's a party school, or, yeah, this is serious. The people from here are really the kind of people I liked. What is all that? Past experience, past experience, past experience, past experiences. Seems logical, but you know what becomes illogical? If you were watching TV and you heard about some raid at Harvard or something like that, it loses some of its glory. But if you hadn't watched that show, here I'm going to Harvard. In other words, it's absurd. It is completely illogical and absurd to be the sum of your learned experiences. Why? Because you could have had a different experience. What, are you a different person? That's ridiculous. You're still in there. But these impressions that got left as part of your learned experiences, they got a lot of voice in there, don't they? Because they become your preferences. They become what you like and dislike. So as long as you have those, most of you think you only have one choice. Okay? You want to be a professor here, you have to publish or perish. That's a learned experience. Dr. Wilson got fired. Oh my God, I better start writing some of your learned experiences. Your actions are based upon, first you went to a school that basically said, we don't care about publishing, I care about research. We care about the money you bring in. Some of them are like that. Okay? Then all of a sudden you get a totally different experience, you behave totally differently, like a robot. Do you understand that? You buy into your preferences, you just bought into the random experience that happened to happen during the moments that you were standing there. I was trying to tell you this. There are 700 billion zillion things going on Earth right now. Any point you pick in Einstein's time-space continuum on the planet Earth, there's something going on. That means there's something going on in front of you. Why is it different than what's going on anywhere else? It's not. It's just what's going on there, and you happen to be standing there. Are you willing to be detached enough to understand that? Well, why was I there? It must have been some dharmic, karmic, meaningful thing that God put me there. No, you were there because of all the forces that happened before you got there that put you there. Your coffee took 10 seconds longer to cook. Therefore, you missed seeing this person but saw that. Right or wrong? Events are unfolding. It's cause and effect. It's science. It's just there. I'm not saying there can't be divine intervention or anything like that. We can talk about that. But I'd rather talk about this. You'd rather talk about that. Let's talk about laws of attraction. Not around me to talk about laws of attraction. Are there laws of attraction? Of course there are. Of course things happen because of things you did before. Even karmic laws. Of course things happen because of things you did before. You were mean to somebody. Wait till you see how they treat you next time. You told somebody when you were 5 what you liked and didn't like, and you see them when you're 35 and they remember that. Oh, she's the one that likes so-and-so, or doesn't like this, or wants to be an airline pilot. You left an impression on that person. So you can call that law of attraction. You can call that karmic. What I'm interested in is this, and I don't want you to think about it because nobody teaches this. If it's true that there's a thing called science based on cause and effect, which all of science is based on cause and effect. They're all looking for the causes that cause the effect. That's what's going on, and how to change them. How do you change them? By being a different cause being put into the soup. That's what everything's doing. Okay? Now, therefore, every moment, oh, you're not going to like this. Every moment of all those billions of moments I talked to you about is what it needs to be based upon the laws of cause and effect. It is happening. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's good. No value judgment. It just is what it is because of all the forces that cause it to be that way. How's it for a scientific statement? Which science is going to disagree with that? It is what it is because of all the forces that cause it to be that way. That's why it is. You look the way you look because of your genetics, because of what you smoke, right or wrong. Every single thing is the result of everything that came together, coalesced together in the moment. Does it have to be that way? No. If things weren't that way, they wouldn't be that way. It wouldn't be different. Your whole political views would be different if you had different parents, or if you went to a different church, or if you had a sister that blah, 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 blah. Do you understand that? That's very important to understand. That way you don't get all weird about your views. Okay? They are just the result of the sum of your learned experiences. So the moments in front of you are the way they are because that's the result of everything that made them be that way. So you could kind of say they're perfect. Not perfect in a moral sense, not perfect in a judgmental sense, not perfect in a human sense, just perfect in a scientific sense. If you ask somebody, why'd you say that? I love telling you this. How could you say that? Why'd you say that? Oh, do you have 5 years? I'll sit down and tell you. My mommy did this, and daddy did this, and I ate pepperoni pizza, and I don't eat pizza, and I did this, and I did that, and I got a phone call, and then this happened, and that happened. And when I was driving, somebody cut me off. I would have to explain to you all the forces that at that moment caused those words to come out of my mouth. Right or wrong? Is that not true of you? Or your moods, and this, and that, and views, and every single thing? That's so beautiful to understand because it helps you transcend your personal self. It's more spiritual than talking about laws of attraction and that kind of stuff. Now, what I was going to tell you about laws of attraction is, if you understand what I just said, that every moment everywhere is what it is because of the forces that came before them that caused it to be that way. Now, let's say I walk in there and I have a preference. I want her to like me instead of him. Okay, Om Shri Guru mantra that can make people like people. I'm going to attract her to me. I'm going to attract. Whoa. Can it work? I'm afraid that it probably can. But what has that got to do with all the forces that would have had it be the way that all of history made it be that way? You just decided I'm more important than the laws of cause and effect, than the laws of nature, than every single thing that ever happened to you that made you like her more than me. Forget it. I'm going to overcome all that. I mean, better suppress it. That's how I look at that stuff. All right? Can it work? Unfortunately, yes. What happens to what would have been? That's karmic. There was something that would have unfolded. You just stepped in there based on your preferences. How would you decide what to attract? Based on your preferences. Is it okay if we talk like this? Have an honest talk? So there you go. There's a sum of your own experiences deciding that they take over everything else is going on. I'm the one. Therefore, it's going to be the way I want. And if I can't do it through manipulating and talking and through this or that, I will do it through mantras. I will do it through the laws of attraction. I am going to take over the forces of nature that would have been, obviously it wouldn't have been the way you wanted or you wouldn't have to do anything. So you just said, I'm more important than all the laws of nature, didn't you? I'm not trying to scare you, all right? But what boils down to, it comes down to that statement. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. If you do that, you own it. You better take care of that person, because they would have been with somebody else. They would have had a whole different life. You just own their life. Isn't it reasonable to think logically about all this stuff? Okay, so we come down to understanding that your preferences are just the result of the moment you happen to be standing in as you walk through moments in your life. Sorry, that's what they are. And then you take these preferences and you have a choice. To be okay, things need to match my preferences. Well, all right, maybe I have to ask you. Does the outside world naturally, without any effort of yours, always match your preferences? Of course not. It doesn't just all of a sudden, every single moment unfolding in front of you, ask permission. Well, those your preferences, ma'am? Not to mention the person next to you who's having the same moment experience has different preferences. Can that happen? Can there be a number of people that have certain preferences about how something unfolds and other people have different ones? In other words, this is the cause of every issue, every problem, all human problems, is that each person has different preferences because each person has had different experiences. Totally natural. The trouble is they're not wise enough to understand, could have had a different experience, I'd have a different preference. All right? It's not exactly as I'm going to devote myself to. However, it is true that if it happens, I'm happier. If it doesn't happen, I'm not happier. And if what I don't want happens, I'm really messed up. So the natural, instinctual thing to do, if you don't pay attention, is to go out there and attempt to manipulate the moments unfolding in front of you so they match your preferences. Can anybody relate to that? Okay. You are taught to do that. I think that's hilarious. The moment unfolding in front of you has a reason it's there. And you know what you say to it? Stop it. You are not what I want. You're not to do that. Go sleep on the couch. Or use a gun. Or dress up real pretty or handsome. Or drive a fancy car. Or have a lot of money. You can do something to try to manipulate that moment in front of you. The trouble is the moment had a way that it was, which was a result of everything that made it be that way. And you just said, I'm more important. And you will suffer. And so will the world around you. Why? Why do you think you have tension? Why do you have anxiety? Why do you think you feel it's a struggle? Is life a struggle? Is life a struggle? Of course not. You drop down onto this amazing planet that takes care of itself. Somehow there's a sun up there that evaporates salty water out of the ocean and doesn't bring the salt with it. And then it condensates into these clouds which blow over the land and water the black forest. Where's the watering pan? I mean, who's in charge? It does it by itself. And there's all these animals. Like we have so many deer out here. There's never a day we don't see 20, 30, 40 deer. Okay? It's just amazing. They live out here. They sleep out here. Who takes care of them? Where's the nursery? Where's the hospital? They literally just go and eat the earth. And they're fine. OMG. Guess what? So do you. That's what all your vegetables are. You're eating the earth. It's an amazing place, isn't it? It's beautiful too. There's mountains and valleys. And you telling me you come down here and suffer? You know you do. You worry, you're anxious, you have problems. There are no problems. There is no reason for anxiety. There is no suffering. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. The reason you suffer is because you want it to be the way you prefer. And it isn't. And you know it isn't. And you know it's not going to be. So you get anxious and you get scared. Oh, he says he loves me. Well, what if he doesn't? But will you love me tomorrow? You want to live like that? Because that's how you live. You basically said, I have these preferences, but you don't know you don't have to have them. You think they're you, okay? I have these preferences, and I need to make the world and everybody in it be the way I want. Otherwise, I suffer. Can you imagine living like that? It must not be much fun. I mean, probably you pick up the newspaper and freak out. Probably turn on the TV and freak out. Probably you talk to somebody and freak out. Probably you don't talk to somebody and freak out. It's a constant problem. Why? Because you have decided how everyone and everything needs to be every single moment. And if it's that way, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And if it's not that way, all right? And even if it is that way, don't you tell me you don't worry it's going to stop. I found the right person. How do I keep them? How do I get them to keep loving me? What do I wear? God, he seemed to like me when I wore this last time, but I can't wear it every time. Ever try to figure out what it is that somebody else likes about you and make sure you do it? Don't blush. That's called suffering. That's called struggling. As opposed to, I dropped down here for a few years. It's an amazing planet. Have we looked at other planets? Or what has that song? Would you rather be on Mars? Or would you rather be on Venus? Or would you rather be on Mercury? They're just gas. I told you, on Venus it rains hydrochloric acid. On Mars, there's just sand. There's nothing. There's nothing on any of the planets. We haven't seen anything. Not an amoeba, not a protozoa, nothing. You want to go? How often has there been nothing in front of you here? Never. Holy mackerel. It's an amazing place. And you suffer. And you know what? You don't have to stay. In fact, you're not going to stay. You come down, you play, and you go home. You don't even know where you came from. You came from somewhere else. I don't care where your body came from. Where'd you come from? You in there. And then you're going to be laying in your deathbed. Okay, where are you going to go? Where did you come from? Where are you going to go? You'll find out. You are going to find out if there's life after death. I guarantee you. You're going to find out the greatest mystery. So every bit of your life is fascinating. It's phenomenal. It is the biggest gift that could ever possibly exist. And you want to pray to God to give you what you want. You should pray. It's all fun. All right. Just stop for a moment. Things are what they are because of all the forces that made them be that way. What forces? Creation, God, the Big Bang. It started there. Read my new book. I go all the way through the whole thing, all right? It's like it existed. It exists. You didn't build it. You didn't build a stupid thing. You just came here, not even for a billionth of a nanosecond. You dropped down here. But you think you're supposed to be in charge. That's so funny. How about sitting here saying, wow, 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 about everything compared to empty space? Do you know that 99.999% of the entire universe is just black, empty space? I would like to be there. But you don't do that. Why? Your preferences are screwing up your entire life. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. It starts to make more sense, doesn't it? If you have no preferences, this is what your life is like. First of all, remember I said, I gave you an out. Having no preferences, okay, you don't have a problem. Preferring every single thing that happens naturally, you have no problem. So it's the same thing. Honoring and respecting and welcoming and just getting blown away that you woke up in the morning, that you're getting older. Now your hair's turning gray, if you even have any left. Okay? And it's like, it's fun. But you don't think so because you're not okay because you have preferences. And you haven't been taken care of your whole life. So now you need to look good, even when you're older, so that you still attract people, so that you have people love you because you need that. All of this is preferences. If you sit there and say, I'm going to wake up in the morning like this, I'm back! Hi! I wonder what's going to happen. And you're just excited about what happens. You can't do that now because you're full of your preferences. You're only okay if what you want happens. And in order to make that happen, you need to fight. You need to plot and plan and struggle and manipulate and control. And that's the cause of tension and anxiety and all that kind of stuff. They're not natural. They're natural if you have preferences. But I gave you an out. You get to have preferences as long as you prefer everything to be the way it is. All right? I told you. And I used to teach this, and somebody actually made a bumper sticker that said, I'd rather be doing what I'm doing. Because if you'd rather be sailing, you're not enjoying driving. You're doing this. Nobody else is in there. That's your kingdom. That's your house. And look what you did. All right. So you have a choice. You either have these preferences and then decide that the answer to having a nice life is to do this amazing thing, which is manipulate every single moment that happens to unfold in front of you so it matches your preferences. That sounded stupid. I want it to. How can you control every moment that's going to unfold in front of you? Every person you're going to meet, every car in front of you, everyone drive when it rains. Do you ever get upset when it rains when you don't want it to? Do you ever get happy when it rains when you want it to? Do you ever like the cold? You ever like the heat? You ever like it's a little too cold? You know what I'm saying? You're doing this. So a wise person, and you're a wise, you wouldn't be here, but this is shocking. There's an alternative for being okay. I want you to be okay. It's not like, listen, having no preference is not renunciation. Renunciation is way oversold. It has nothing to do with spirituality. Renunciation is, I have a preference, but I won't do it. That's not having no preferences. That's being filled with preferences, but suppressing them. We got to deal with something much deeper than that. We know that doesn't work. All right? It didn't say the great way is not difficult for those who suppress their preferences. We know that's not true. It said the grave was not different with those who have no preferences. Well, how do you have no preference? I gave you one way. Learn to prefer everything that is. Learn to prefer all the moments in front of you. You go to work, you turn something in at work, your boss comes out here, red in the face. Did you give this to me? Yes. And he starts yelling at you. He or she starts yelling at you, all right? And you're in there. You don't put it outside, but you're in there saying, God, this is fun. I told you, my Yog Shakti, she passed a few years ago, but she's the one who gave us the Durga statue back in the 70s, late 70s. Very high being, very quiet. Didn't want anyone to know she was high, but she's a very high being. She used to visit us periodically. She once turned to me. She said, Mickey? I said, yes, Mother. She says, don't you just love when they yell at you? There's so much energy. Isn't there? Isn't there a lot of energy coming off them when they're yelling at you? You know why you have trouble with it? Because you're resisting it. Because you prefer not to be yelled at. So you're in there fighting the energy. She's in there transmuting the energy into ecstasy. She says, don't you just love? It's so beautiful. It's like free energy. I'll take it anytime. Now, you're not there yet, but we'll get there. Wouldn't it be fun to be there? Like I said, you don't smile while someone's yelling at you. You know, you play your role. You play your little part very well, right? But inside, it's like, wow, all of it is fun. All of it is exciting. All of it, you know what all of it is? The experience of your life. Isn't it? We use those terms. I had the experience of my life. You're always having the experience of your life. That's what you're having every moment. But you're the one who's deciding whether you accept it as the experience of your life, whether you want it or not. All right. So one alternative is to sit here and say, the only way I can be okay is to manipulate everything and everybody all the time when it unfolds in front of me. Have you ever been really happy to have something happen and bring you down? Oh, you didn't manipulate that one. You should have controlled that phone call from Europe. You shouldn't have come at that time. You don't stand a chance. And you know it. And that's why there's so much anxiety and so on. So one choice is to say, okay, the best I can do is do the best I can to manipulate and control everybody and everything around me. That's the outer path. Or I can recognize that I'm the one who decided my preferences. And my preferences are screwing me up. Not because they're not being satisfied, but because they're there. My preferences keep me from appreciating everything. I can't appreciate everything. It's not what I want. Well, who decided that? Me. Well, maybe we can change that. That's literally the difference between worldly work and inner work. That's inner work. I'm going to work on myself. There's a Rumi quote. Yesterday I was clever. I was trying to change the world. Today I'm wise. I'm changing myself. That's the difference. That's the paradigm shift. Not changing what you like and what you don't like. The paradigm shift of realizing, wait a minute, I am the one who's making this mess in here. Because I'm the one who created these preferences and held on to these preferences. But you said in the sum of learned experiences. You had the experiences. Nobody's saying you didn't. You do not have to be the sum of your learned experiences. You are the consciousness that is aware that the last time you met that person, they didn't say something really nice, okay? But you're also conscious enough to know maybe they were in a bad mood. So you start to work from a deeper place inside of you. Not this personal thing that gets programmed by these random, arbitrary, stupid experiences that you could have had any one and you just happen to have that one. You come back higher and you sit there and say, okay, I had this experience. I met this person and she didn't seem very nice, but maybe she had a bad day. I don't know. I don't know anything about that person. Meet him once doesn't mean a thing. Not one single thing. You might as well not met him. And that's how you look at it. So you do what's called letting go of the impression, not the experience. You can still remember it, right? But it didn't leave an impression on you that carved your behavior. I met you. It didn't seem so pleasant, but maybe I wasn't pleasant that day. Maybe I'm the one that ate the pizza. It didn't work out so good, right? Your moods change based on what you eat and what's this and what's that. Your phone call also affected you when you met that person. So you start neutralizing. That's how I used to call it. Neutralizing the experience. Not denying it. Not ignoring it. It's there, but I'm wise enough to know It's just one moment in creation, of which the Earth's been here for 4.5 billion, and there's trillions of experiences happening, and that just happened to be what happened at this moment. I am open. You stay open. That's the key. You don't let it program you. It comes in, you see the reaction that you start to have, and you do my favorite words, you let go. You don't deny, you don't suppress. You're wise. That's a wise being. You're wise enough to know it doesn't mean nothing. So that when you meet the person again, it's the same as meeting them the first time. Because they're different. They had more experiences in between, and so did you. You don't formulate opinions and values and this and that and all kinds of junk about people, places, and things. I tried to have my birthday party in 5th grade outside, and it rained. I hate the rain. I've always hated the rain. People, literally, there are people who tell me that they get really upset around the holidays. Why would you get upset around the holidays? It's supposed to be holiday time. And they say, well, when I was young, my sister got a present and I didn't get it. And she always made fun of me because of it. And I just never liked present giving. What you could have done is sat there and said, here's a holiday. Sister got what I wanted. It goes, you laugh. Oh, it's funny. Look at that stupid little present. I ain't holding that inside of me. Not a chance in the world. And you neutralize it. Like maybe you need to use positive affirmation. Maybe you need to go to sister and sit there and say, wow, that's beautiful. I'm so glad you got that. Instead of inside. You work with yourself. Are you capable of working with yourself? But if you don't work with yourself, it's going to be the sum of your learned experiences. In program, we have a thing called the default. There's a default behavior, a default way. You need to make sure the default is not the lowest part of your being. The lowest reaction you ever had. You just let it get like that. Get jealous and needy and this and that and hurt. You ever get hurt because somebody said something? Have you ever gotten hurt because somebody didn't say something? Well, what does that mean? They didn't say lots of things. Lots of things they didn't say. But you had a preference and an expectation that if you said this, they're going to say that. And they didn't. It hurt you. Is that on them or on you? You better start owning stuff. Because that's on you. Maybe they were thinking of something else. Maybe they just didn't have the same upbringing that you did. There's so many billions of reasons why they didn't say what you expected them to say. But you think there's only one reason. The reason that you decided they should have said it didn't happen. And so you took it personal. Do you take things personal? You know what it means to take things personal? The sum of my learned experiences are what's supposed to be happening. That's what it means. I took it personal. I had a view inside of here was supposed to happen. You didn't do it. And no, it's not okay. So you need to start looking at that saying, that's ruining your life. You've now narrowed your life down that each moment has to be the way you want it to be. Otherwise, you're not happy. And then you wonder why you're not happy. And by the way, happy is not every once in a while you're okay. Happy is from the moment you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night, no matter what happens, you're having a good time. And so you finally realize there's this inner work. And we start talking about neutralizing. I haven't talked about that for a long time. You neutralize an event. How? You just don't let it come in and leave an impression that's going to screw up the rest of your life. You don't let it make a preference. You don't let it be, I don't want to see this person again. You don't make it so that if you see them in the plaza, you walk the other way. Who wants to do that? You don't want to do that. You don't want to go and take a math test and get a C when you thought you deserved an A, and now hate the class and hate the professor and start missing and fail the thing. Do you? But you do it. And if you don't do it, you just suppress that part of you because you let that one event leave an impression, a negative impression on you. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. You don't deny, you don't hide. You just sit there and say, I can handle that. It's an event that happened on planet Earth. I expected to get an A, and I got a C. I guess I got some learning to do. Thank God. You change your attitude about life. It's not going to be the way you want it to be. The situation is you become wise enough to understand it is not going to be the way I want. And you raise your hands, well, why can't it be the way I want? Because it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be the way it is. Those are the forces that cause it to be that way. You have inside of you the force that caused you to be that way, and never the twain. Now, I can't say never the twain will meet every once in a while, but they say twice a day, a broken clock has the right time. There is the chance, but it ain't going to last. Anybody noticed? It is not going to be the way you want. All right? So you get to the point you understand. The nice part of this is, if you're trying to manipulate and control everybody and everything that's happening, you're not going to ever do it. There's no possibility. If you're only working with yourself, you came down to, hey, I might succeed. The only thing I need to change is me. Which would you rather do? Have to change every moment that's going to happen for the rest of your life and every person involved for the rest of your life, everything? Or come in here and say, I can make it all be beautiful. I just have to change the way I'm looking at stuff. That is the inner path. So you wake up and you say, can I change this? I'm in here, so is this thing that I live with that's not so easy to live with. The sum of my learned experiences, your psyche, all right? The mind and the personal heart, because it can cause a lot of trouble, can't it? Can I learn to work with that? Can I learn to be more accepting and more open and more appreciative and more grateful of what? Everything. What's there not to be grateful of? Again, here's a body. It's not a body. And it's not yours. There's 25 trillion living cells. They're alive. They carry out a function. They communicate with each other. Do you understand that? 25 trillion living cells are what you call your body. What do you have to do with those cells? Nothing. Then it's not your body. It's theirs. Wake up. See, science is spiritual. They align perfectly. So you've got all these cells in the body, and you sit there and say, I had a boring day. What should I be grateful about? How about that? Say thank you. When's the last time you thanked your liver for doing what it does? Wait till you see it doesn't do what it does. You start cursing the thing. You never thanked it when it did what it was supposed to do. Your heart, what it beats, 70, 80 times a minute. What are you doing to make that happen? Nothing. What would happen if it didn't happen? You're dead on the spot. And you don't appreciate it. You don't say thank you. Like I said, how can you say there's nothing to be appreciative of? She didn't say hello to me when she walked by, had a terrible day. There's nothing to be appreciative of. Really? That's a joke. You need to change your attitude. You need to change your frame of reference. You need to change how you're looking at things. And then all of a sudden, it's a miracle. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable. It's raining. Oh my God. Yes, I needed to go out and deliver some. Give me a break. The rain gives you food. The rain does everything. I told you, it's hot. Why is it hot? Because there's this sun 93 million miles away. How bright must it be at 93 million miles away that you feel its heat here? You can look at it that way. Which one of you likes stars? It's a star. Stop calling it the sun. It's just your closest star, and you're close enough to a star to feel its heat. You're close enough to a star to feel its heat. That is pretty exciting, isn't it? Nothing is not exciting. I taught myself this so long ago, and I trained him. If he's walking down the parking lot to go into a grocery store, and I feel the sun, I stop, turn around, and feel it. Every single time. Just like, wow, that star is shining out there, all right? And it's bringing heat and warmth and food, and look what it does. And you complain about it. No wonder we're not having fun. Because you define fun so small. Your fun is exactly the moment of floating in front of me matches what I wanted to happen at that moment. Now, a few moments ago, I wouldn't have liked it to happen. You just ruined your life. There's no way you're going to have a good life. You can have a reasonable life compared to somebody else, but they're not doing so good. Have you noticed? Rich people, poor people, men, women, old, young, everybody's suffering. That's what Buddha taught you. All life is suffering. That's why. And so basically you sit there and say, I have the rest of my life. I don't care how old you are. It doesn't take a lot of time. I have the rest of my life to start enjoying the rest of my life. How do I do it? I wake up in the morning and I catch myself having all these preferences. What's going to happen today? And you learn to work with yourself, to sit there and say, I can't wait to see what's going to happen today. You start realizing, this is fun. It's fun. I'm going to go through the rest of my life the spiritual path of non-resistance. You're not resisting reality. You honor and respect reality. If there's a part of your being that it hits that doesn't match your preferences, You respect that. Of course it doesn't. Okay, so now what do? I can handle it, all right? And I let it go. I let it go. Okay, this wasn't what I wanted. It's okay, little boy. Right? It's like talking to a little kid. Okay, it's not what you wanted. I understand that. Into every life some rain must fall. And it's okay. And then you take it and you offer it up. Thank you. Thank you. And you don't let it program you to where it creates more preferences. All right? So now, it teaches a new book, Living Untethered, goes very deep with this stuff. How do you actually get rid of preferences? You don't get rid of preferences. I don't want you struggling with your preferences. I don't want you suppressing your preferences. I don't want you feeling guilty about your preferences. I want you going deeper. Buddhists say work at the root. What is the cause of preferences? The stuff you stored from before that you didn't like. And that caused you to have preferences. I want you to work with that. So you don't work with your preferences. Understand what your preferences are, right? The semi-learned experiences. Fine. I can't deny that. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to suppress it. I'm not going to do anything. Feel guilty about it, right? No matter what it is. How do I feel guilty about it? It's just semi-learned experiences. But then why am I carrying the semi-learned experience inside of me? You had an experience when you were 5 that took a blanket away too soon. You're now 55 years old. Do you need to be weird about it? Do you need to really? The husband pulls the blanket aside. Don't you dare, I'm serious about blankets. You laugh all you want. That stuff comes up. Go ask Freud. That stuff is still in there. You stored it in there, and if it went in with pain, it's coming back with pain. That's how you deal with preferences. You deal with their root, with their cause, all right? Because you're able to let go of that. You're able to sit there and look at the fact that you stored blankie, or you stored mommy's divorce, or you stored this, you stored sister got the bike that you wanted, or you stored that husband didn't do this. You stored this stuff. You stored that when you went to Hawaii, you finally got the money, and you stayed at a hotel where the volcano was going off. Now you hate Hawaii. You do. Well, that's crazy. So what you do is you let go of the stuff you stored in there. That's how you deal with preferences. You let go of their cause. And if you didn't store that stuff in there, you'd still like Hawaii, and you'd still like Alaska, and you'd still like our son, and you'd still like everything. And your ex-husband, inside, he's got married, they got living for years. I mean, how many people do you get to know? There's 8.3 billion people on the planet Earth. How many do you actually get to live with and know? 3? 5? So let's just hate him for the rest of our lives. No, you got to know a person. Wasn't such a nice one, but you got to know a person. Believe me, there's way worse. And you just sit there, and yes, you got divorced, yes, you do the thing, but inside, you accept, you honor that happened in your life, that you learned from it. You learned how to do better in a relationship. You learned that people aren't always what they say they are. You learned a billion things, didn't you? It's like, how can you say it's a bad experience? It's just an experience. But the trouble is you stored all the pain. So you can't do it. So the answer is you let go of the stuff you stored. Now, we don't know how to do that. You think you need to lay on a couch for 20 years to get one of them out, okay? Yoga doesn't teach that. Yoga does not teach that. Yoga says there's only one reason that stuff is in there. You're holding it in there. There is nothing in there once it comes in except you. And you do resist, don't you? And when you resist, it stays. And when you don't resist, it goes. It's still, memory can stay. You can bring it back, but it doesn't haunt you. It doesn't store all the pain and all the stuff. So you need to learn not to store this stuff. I always teach you this at the end. It's like, did you learn to play the piano? Did you learn to play tennis? Did you learn calculus? You learn all kinds of things, don't you? Did you know how to do them to start with? No. So why do you think you can't learn this? This is the most important thing you will ever learn in your entire life. How not to let natural experiences that are unfolding in front of you screw up the rest of your life. I was asking you guys, if you store every single thing that ever disturbs you inside of you, what's it going to be like inside? Disturbed. And it is, isn't it? I don't want it to be disturbed inside of you. I don't want it to be, and it doesn't need to be. It's that way because you stored this stuff. So your whole spiritual path becomes learning to let go of the stuff you stored in there and not put more in there. But the way you do it is the latter part. You don't go in there and try to let go of every single thing that ever bothers you because you're never going to stand a chance. But you can learn to handle today. That's all I ask of you. Learn to handle the things that happen today. Don't put more in there. Don't worry about what's already in there. As I said, don't fight with your preferences. I don't care. If I prefer chocolate or vanilla ice cream, it's okay. Just don't talk to me about it. Just if the reason you prefer chocolate over vanilla is because your sister always got the chocolate and you hate her, and so you want the chocolate and show everybody else you're better than yourself, then you probably need to let it go. All right? You hear what I'm saying? It's like you got to look and say, I'm going to go through the day today without putting more of that in there. You wake up in the morning, you sit down with yourself, you have a nice sit down, and you say, there's going to be a day that unfolds today. What does that mean? The Earth's going to orbit on its axis. It's done it for 14.5 billion years every day. It's going to do it today too. Can you handle what happens on the planet Earth in front of you? Don't worry, you don't have to handle everything that happens. You only have to handle the tiny, minuscule nano amount that happens in front of you. Can you handle it? I hope you're inspired to say, of course I can. Of course I can. Then do. How? Neutralize the events, use positive thinking, witness consciousness, mantra, give it to God, whatever works for you. Just don't keep it inside. Then at night, sit down. How did I do? Uh-oh. All right, I didn't let it go on the spot. Let it go now. So let it go. Offer it. That's what it's all about. Neutralize it, work with it, just do the best you can. Well, what happens if I don't do good? Then you learn. That's how you play tennis. You don't get it across the net every time. Right? When you play the piano, you don't start with Beethoven or Mozart. You start with the scales and you make mistakes. That's wonderful. It's called learning. Learn to let go, learn to let go, learn to let go. How? Relax. When there's a tendency to, you do have a tendency to resist, don't you? You ever see it in there? Okay? Relax. The tendency to resist, just relax. It'll then go through over time. And then will happen, bigger things will happen and you'll handle those. Then stuff from inside, from long ago, will come up by itself. Why? Because you're not pushing it down. You didn't push stuff down on top of it. It will come up by itself. Well, do I want it to come up? Of course you want it to come up. You don't want it down there. It's ruining your life. And so it comes up, you just breathe through it and you be grateful. You should be grateful that it's coming up. Throw it a party. Hey, come on, I haven't seen you for so long. Where you been? I'm so sorry I shoved you down there. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. They should apologize. And then the next thing you know, you start feeling love, bliss, ecstasy, joy all the time, no matter what happens. You get excited if somebody hates you. There's a guy who hates me. Oh my God, he's excited. He's coming over. Wait to hear what he says. Imagine being like that. How would you like to be like that? You have no worries in the whole world. And you just go out there and have fun and do the best you can and go to work and have a family. Nobody says what you're going to do. Just do it with love. Do it with passion. Do it with excitement and inspiration. Run to go to work and run to come home and run to take the kids to soccer. Anyways, I hope you understand. You have a choice. You have these preferences. They're not yours. They just got stuck in there. Because you stored stuff in there. You can either go out and manipulate and control the entire world every moment, and you're going to fail. It's not going to work, all right? Or you change what's going on inside. And you change what's going on inside, everything changes. All right? You came down to the core. Now everything changes. All right? Work on these things. Jagrative.